So this is Dr. Kavita Singh, Associate Professor in Institute of Aeronautical Engineering in Department of Civil Engineering. So today our topic will be for discussion, interpretation of terrain evaluation. So what is terrain evaluation? First we'll just discuss about terrain evaluation. Terrain evaluation is about what is the terrain, how we can just interpret the terrain. So in the previous lectures we have just discussed about the different types of visual interpretation, converging evidence, different types of terrain, how we can interpret the terrain with the tone, texture, shape, size and color. So today in this topic we will be discussing about the terrain. How can you evaluate a terrain if you want to interpret a terrain? What are the process? How do you interpret a terrain or evaluation process? Why it is required to do the evaluation? That all we are going to discuss in this topic today. So before we start this, let us go through this contents. What are the contents which we are going to study today? So about what is terrain evaluation, interpretation of terrain evaluation, recognition elements, and how terrain evaluation is interpreted. How terrain evaluation is interpreted. So these all we are going to just discuss today. So let us start with the first slide. So what is a terrain? So terrain refers to the physical characteristics of an area of land. It's like a physical characteristics of an area or land. That means a piece of land. If you take a piece of land, what are the physical characteristics present on the land? Like what type of topography is there, what type of soil is there, what type of feature is present, or it is a hilly area or plain area. That all comes under the physical characteristics of the terrain. So it encompasses features such as elevation, slope, vegetation, water bodies and natural or man-made obstacles. So elevations also will come under physical characteristics. Slope, what is the type of the slope? Vegetation, what is the type of the vegetation? And water bodies, what are the different types of water bodies? We are going to discuss that all today. And natural and man-made obstacles. So terrain plays a crucial role in the various activities including urban planning, agriculture, military operations and outdoor recreation. So how does the terrain is very much important in day-to-day life? Like it includes the urban planning. Urban planning means in urban areas when a city is planned. So before going for a planning of the city, the terrain evaluation should be done. The terrain should be evaluated. It should be properly find out which kind of soil is present, which kind of topography is there, like any kind of elevation is present or any slope area is there, or that all natural and man-made obstacles, whatever it is present over that area, that we are all going to study before going for the urban planning. Next, if you want to go for the agriculture, first we have to find out what is the elevation of that area. If it is elevated area, that means water holding capacity won't be there. So we have to just find out the plain areas where the water can hold for a longer time. So that's all different things are important for when you go through this all operations. We have to go with this terrain evaluation. Terrain evaluation is that much important in these all kinds of applications. So understanding the terrain of a particular area is essential for effective navigation, resource management and decision making in diverse fields. So this is a kind of terrain. If we see this figure, so different types of features we will see on the terrain. Like you can see here, there is a mountain region. Again, here somewhat elevated areas are there. Some slope area is there, some elevated area is there, some plain region is there. So these all kinds of up and downs comes under terrain. Okay, so terrain evaluation involves assessing the physical characteristics of a particular area of land to determine its suitability for various purposes such as construction, agriculture, conservation, recreational activities. So it determines the suitability, whether the land is suitable or not. Land suitability, we can just go with this evaluation process. So whether land is suitable or not for construction, for agriculture, for conservation, for recreational activities, that all we have to consider while going with the terrain evaluation. So this evaluation typically includes analyzing factors such as topography, soil quality, drainage patterns, vegetation, climate, and accessibility. So these are all different factors to analyze, when we are going for the evaluation. Like we are going to evaluate the topography, type of the topography, and soil quality, drainage pattern. What is the drainage pattern? So drainage pattern in the previous lecture when we have studied about the converging evidence. So drainage patterns totally decides on the topography, what kind of topography it is. So which kind of area it is, based on that the drainage patterns will be decided. Now, engineers, geologists, environmental scientists, urban planners, often they conduct terrain evaluation to inform decision-making process related to land use planning, infrastructure development, environmental management, natural resource conservation. The results of terrain evaluations can help to identify potential hazards, opportunities, constraints associated with a particular site. So, allowing this stakeholders to make informed decisions and about the future use and management. So, interpretation of terrain evaluation. So, the study of terrain is essential and a prerequisite for proper planning and utilization of the land resources. So, the purpose could be short-term military requirement or for certain localized zones. The aim of terrain study is to gather maximum and systematic formation on the various aspects of ground. So, the proper evaluation of this information can be done to meet the requirements of the different users. So, the detailed method of terrain study are as follows. So, if you want to go with the interpretation of the terrain evaluation, so these are some points which we have to consider, like area study. In area study, we have to go with this library work, laboratory exercise, ground observation, study of aerial photos, and detailed field work, laboratory test, completion of reports. So these all we have to go through once we are going for the interpretation of the terrain evaluation. So what is library work? Library work means the basic material and the background information about the terrain. So once we are going to discuss about the terrain, once we are going to find out about the terrain, so first thing what we have to do is we have to find out the basic information. That the basic information is collected from the different library sources. So just we can go to the library or online searching what is the background of that area, that all information will be collected first. And second thing is laboratory exercise. First, after collection of this all information, we'll just go with the scanning of the aerial photos, checking of the quality of the scale, etc. So whichever area we have taken, we have to take that aerial photo or satellite imagery, and just we have to scan that imagery and make it into digital format so that we can just go with the terrain evaluation. Now, ground observations. So initial field traverses, we have to go with the ground observation. So whichever area is some doubtful area, that area can be visited and we can just find out the initial field traverses, study of the aerial photos, delineation of the facets and the planning of the field work. So these all we have to go through before we are going for the terrain evaluation. Then later, after the laboratory test and all, laboratory exercises and all, just we can go with this detailed field work. So what is detailed field work? Checking of the photo characteristics, recording terrain data, collecting soil samples, field test for moisture content and soil, and then we have to go with the laboratory test. So in this we can go with the soil test and rock identification. So we can just get the sample of that terrain, soil sample of the terrain, and we can go with the test of the soil, which kind of soil it is, what is the water holding capacity. So whether it is clay soil or sandy soil, so how much durable it is when a construction work is done over that terrain. So that all we can just find out with the help of this soil testing and rock identification. So what kind of rock is present over there. So that all information can be done in the laboratory test. So one sample can be brought and the information can be received by the tests done in the labs. So completion of the report. So after this all information we are gathering, the final reports will come to a conclusion. Will come to a confirmatory observation that if required, finalization of the reports, typing of cards, preparation of the maps we can do based on the collection of the information of the different features which we have just discussed here. Next, recognition elements. How can we recognize? So there are different elements. Based on that, we can just recognize the terrain. So recognition elements uses photo interpretation aids to describe different terrain units. So what are the elements we'll see? Position in landscape and association with the other terrain units. So what is the position in the landscape? So whichever area we are going to identify, we have to just find out the position of the area in the landscape. Landscape means area which is taken for the evaluation. So there we have to just take the position, which position, suppose this is the terrain area which we are going to evaluate. So suppose this portion of the terrain is going to be evaluated. So we have to just find out which position it is located. So this entire aerial photograph, entire satellite imagery, the topography will not be same. So here can be a hilly area, here can be a plain area. So that all depends the type of the area is chosen for the evaluation. So we have to just get to know about the position in the landscape and association with the terrain elements. Association means suppose this is the area we are going to find out, we have to find the associated area. Suppose there may be a river over here, or there may be a drainage patterns over here. So different kinds of drainage pattern, big forest area. So these are the associated features to this terrain. That means the associated feature nearby the landscape or nearby the terrain, it is covered with the vegetation, covered with the forest area, or covered with the rivers or drainage patterns. Then morphology, surface configuration and micro relief. So what is the morphology of that area? Morphology of that area we have to just find out for the micro relief. Next, drainage pattern, drainage texture, density, internal and external drainage we have to get to know. So what is a drainage pattern? Yesterday in the previous lecture we have just discussed about the converging evidence. So in the converging evidence we have discussed about the different patterns of drainage. So in that we have seen many different patterns of drainage like dendritic, circular, radial, terrace, this all rectangular. So these are all drainage patterns we have just discussed in the previous lecture. So drainage pattern, texture and density, this all we have discussed in the previous lecture. So that all depends the internal and external drainage. So how the topography will be, based on that the drainage will be distributed. Okay. So erosion features and gully sections we have to just find out. And these are all recognition elements. If we want to recognize the area, we have to just go through these elements. Land use and cultural features. So what are the land use? How the land is utilized. So once we see a satellite image or aerial photograph, we will see that there are many of the features are land use. Land use means the land is utilized by the human beings. So human beings will utilize the land for their purpose, like for agriculture, for buildings, for transportation and all. So how the land is utilized, that also we have to consider by terrain evaluation. So once we get to know the land use pattern of that area, we can just identify which kind of terrain it is, because in the hilly terrain there will not be many roads or many houses which are so much congested. In the areas which are plain areas, that areas will be having a lot of population and will be having very much congested areas, and a lot of buildings will be present over there. So based on that all information, we can just find out the land use of that area. Okay. Now vegetation. Vegetation means what? The greenery which will grow naturally. So if we talk about the forest area, if we talk about the greenery which is grown naturally, so that all areas we can just come under this vegetation process. So total variation and the special photo texture. Variation of the special photo texture we can just find out in this terrain evaluation. So how terrain evaluation is interpreted? So terrain evaluation involves interpreting various terrain characteristics to assess the stability of land of different purpose, and this interpretation can be done through combination of field observations, geospatial analysis, expert judgment. So if you want to go with the evaluation of the terrain or interpretation of the terrain, I hope you know what is interpretation. So interpretation is reading the image. Reading the image is called as interpretation. So if you want to interpret the image, how a terrain evaluation can be done. So terrain evaluation involves interpreting various terrain's characteristics to assess the suitability of land of different purpose. So this interpretation can be done through combination of field observations, geospatial analysis. What is combination of field observations? Field observation means if you go to the field and find out the ground truth, the fields, whatever features which is visible in the image, they may not be that much clear. If it is not that much clear, you have to go to the field and just find out the ground truth of that area. And we can go with the geospatial analysis, and we can take a judgment from the expert. So here is how the terrain evaluation is typically interpreted. So there are some points we can just discuss. Based on that, the interpretation is done of the terrain. So elevation. So elevation of the terrain is fundamental factor in the terrain evaluation. High elevations may indicate mountainous or hilly terrain, like I said before. Also, if there is a aerial photograph, so if it is a high elevation area like this, so that means that is a mountainous and hilly area. So when you see a satellite image, the texture of that hilly area will be somewhat rough texture, and up and downs we can see in the satellite image or aerial photograph, which might be unsuitable for the certain types of development, but could offer opportunities for recreation or conservation. So it is not good for developmental activities. Like developmental activities means not good for the construction work, building construction work, not good for the transportation work, but often except that it is good for the recreation and conservation activities. That way we can just interpret the terrain. So low-lying areas may be prone to flooding, but could be suitable for agriculture or urban development. So whenever a low-lying area is there, that means here is a hilly area, and this will be like there will be slope over here. So this is the top of the hill, and down it is called as low-lying area. Okay. So low-lying area, it is oftenly categorized as the area which is going to be flooded anytime and suitable for agriculture or urban development. Okay. Next, slope. Slope, the angle influences the suitability of the land for different uses. Steep slopes may be unsuitable for construction or agriculture due to erosion and stability issues, but they could be valuable for forestry or conservation. Gentle slopes are generally more suitable for development and agriculture. So wherever we find the gentle slope, it is suitable for the developmental activities and for the agricultural activities. Steep slopes are unsuitable. Always it is unsuitable for construction, as I said in the previous slide also, when it is a steep slope area, because when it is steep slope, the area there is a chance of flooding. So whenever the heavy rain occurs, that steep slope will be flooded with water, and the low-lying areas will be flooded with water. So that's why it is unsuitable for the agriculture or construction. And why it is unsuitable for agriculture? Because erosion activities will take place wherever we find a steep slope. So when the water is falling down and when it is going to the steep slope side, it will just carry all the top layer of the soil, and it will erode the soil fertility, and that's how the soil erosion occurs. So it is unsuitable for the agriculture too. Now, aspect. So what is aspect? Aspect refers to the direction that a slope faces, like which direction the slope is facing through. So either it is north facing, south facing. So it influences the factors such as sunlight exposure. So based on the slope face, we can just find out the sunlight exposure. By seeing the image itself, we can just get to know where the sun is exposing its face, right? So it influences the factors such as sunlight exposure, temperature, vegetation, growth, and different aspects may be more suitable for certain types of agriculture or forestry. Now next, coming to the soil type, what are the soil types? Soil characteristics such as texture, fertility, drainage, pH play a significant role in the determining land suitability. Soils with a good drainage and fertility are often preferred for the agriculture. with the drainage and fertility. So when we are preferring for agriculture, when you're going with the terrain evaluation, just we have to consider this factor that soils should be with a good drainage and fertility. These are only preferred for the agriculture. While poorly drained or highly acidic soils may be better suited for the forestry or conservation. So this is how, based on these all factors, we can just evaluate the terrain and we can just come to a conclusion that this terrain is suitable for what purpose, right? Now, land cover. So the existing vegetation and the land cover provides valuable information about ecological value and potential uses of the land. So ecological value and the potential uses of the land means, what is land cover? So basically the land cover means the land which is covered naturally by the vegetation, by the forestry, or by the different kinds of grown greenery which is grown naturally, comes under vegetation. So forested areas may be suitable for the timber production or conservation, while grasslands may be suitable for the grazing or agriculture. Okay. Now coming to the hydrology. What is hydrology? So hydrology means it is directly related to the water. So presence of water bodies, wetlands, drainage patterns can be can affect land suitability. Like water bodies, in sense when there are a lot of water bodies present over there, then the water will be present in the soils, and the top layer of the soil or the soil texture will be always wet with the water. So it may be unsuitable for the agriculture purpose, or drainage patterns can affect the land suitability too. Areas with high water tables or frequent flooding may be unsuitable for development, but could provide habitat for the wildlife or support wetland ecosystem. So areas which are having high water tables means the groundwater level of the water will be high. So groundwater level when it is high, so it is having very low capacity to hold the, to absorb the water, because already water is present under the ground. So it will not absorb more water. So there are more chances of frequent flooding, because water absorb will not be there, and water will not seep inside the ground, because it will have more water underground. So that's the reason the flooding chances will increase. So maybe unsuitable for the development, but could provide a habitat for wildlife and support of wetland ecosystem. So it may not provide for it may not be good for the agriculture, and it may not be good for the developmental activities, but it may be helpful for the wildlife and wetland conservation. Okay. Accessibility. So accessibility to transportation networks. So while evaluating the terrain, this accessibility, like when you see a photo sheet, or if you see a map, or if you see a satellite image, or if you see an aerial photograph, there if we see a lot of networks means, suppose this is the NH, National Highway, and you may see somewhere state highway, okay, state highway, and lot of roads which are connecting to it, okay. So these all roads, if you see this much road networks in the terrain, that means that area is very much good in the accessibility, right? To reach to one point to the other point, it is good infrastructure is there. And moreover, based on this accessibility, we can just even interpret that this area is a plain area, because in a plain area only the accessibility will be more. In the hill areas, the accessibility will not be there. So that's how we can just consider this factor also, and consideration for the land use planning. So if you are going for the land use planning, suppose somebody wants to go for a construction work, then if they see this terrain will be having more transportation network, then it's good, important for the consideration of the land use planning, because somewhat construction will be somewhere here, and if they want to reach to this point, the accessibility should be better or good for transportation methods, right? So remote or inaccessible areas may be less suitable for development. Why? Remote areas were less suitable for development means, suppose this is the satellite image or aerial photograph. So if you want to develop this area and it is having less inaccessible areas, means you can find only one road, that too it is not a highway or it is not a metal road, it is a very like a footpath, we can find a road here. So if this only one road if you find in the total terrain, in the total area, that means this area is not suitable, it is not suitable for development, suitable for development. Why? Because the things which are required for the construction, it will not reach to the site. It will not reach to the site. Suppose this is the site. So if you want to go for the construction, it will not reach to this particular site because it is having low accessibility. It is not having transportation network, right? And less suitable for the development, but would offer opportunities for the wilderness and recreation or conservation too. Right? So I think we have covered these points. Like if you want to go with this terrain evaluation for a interpretation purpose, so interpreter, or if you want to go for any kind of construction works, so first of all the basic requirement is terrain evaluation. Before terrain evaluation we cannot go for construction. So in a terrain evaluation, if you want to construct a building also, we have to just find out the terrain, which kind of area it is. Either it is a hilly area, either it is a slope area, and which kind of soil is present over there, because soil like sandy soils will be not having holding capacity. The durability of the construction will not stay for longer time. So that kind of soil will not be suitable for the construction. So this terrain evaluation can be done before we are going for the construction. The soil can be brought for the what do you say, labs for the evaluation, or for the getting the results, what kind of soil it is, how much durable it is. That all information if you get to know, then only we can just go with the construction work. So this is very important. Terrain evaluation very much important when you are going for the agriculture process or any kind of transportation construction, any kind of building construction works, any kind of industrial construction works. So these all helps us in the if you go with the terrain evaluation, this will be helpful for us for the taking a decision. So it is very much helpful for the decision makers to take a decision about the terrain and just get to know the information about it before going for the construction works. So this is about the terrain evaluation. So these are few of the references about this topic. Like if you want to just go through, just you can go through this MNG Ready Remote Sensing in VSBS publication in Delhi, which will be helpful to you to get to know more information about it. Or else you can just go through these links for the more better understanding, online links, and you can just find out the more content online for more information about the terrain evaluation. So terrain evaluation is very much important for the construction as well as agriculture and our day-to-day life. So our interpreter has to tell the report before going for any project construction, any kind of construction works. The terrain evaluation is very important. So terrain evaluation can be done only when a interpreter should be able to interpret the image, right? To read the image. So in the previous lectures, we have discussed how the interpreter will be able to interpret the image and how they will be able to get to know the information, how they will be able to read the image, and then only they can go with the terrain evaluation. After the terrain evaluation, finally they can come to a conclusion about the terrain, and they are able to decide a planning, urban planning or agricultural planning on that such areas. So this is very much helpful in the military purpose also, defense purpose also, and day-to-day life also, right? So that's all for today. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.